Chapter 11. Leonie rubbed her sore eyes as she stared through the dew-covered window of the small study, watching the fingers of orange light rise from the east and stretch over the plains to the north. She imagined Cataraqua troops on those plains, a blanket of black armor, leaving burning grasslands in their wake. She was on the third floor of the largest home in Watchful, which said little for the town. Still, the home was on the precipice of a large hill Watchful resided on, and the view was breathtaking. Miles and miles of rolling downs and farmland, in all shades of orange, yellow, and brown. They were the colors of resistance, the world fighting the final moments before winter. She turned away from the window with a stifled yawn. The study was the antithesis to the view outside, dull and forgettable. It was small, hardly 20 feet in each direction, and filled with thick oak shelves roughly hewn and covered in books of the unremarkable kind. The shelves had become so blanketed in dust, Leonie wondered if the inhabitants of the home were even literate. Metal-framed lanterns hung from the ceiling at various heights, most low enough Leonie's fingers could touch them. The candles inside burned low, pointless now, sunlight trickling into the room, chasing the faint glow of candlelight away. Captain Thibault stood across the room, his feet shoulder-width apart and hands clasped behind him. His curly hair and neat beard made him look out of place beside the old, chipped wood of the study's only door. He was the portrait of a man of court and war, trapped in this house's peasant frame. Still, he seemed unbothered by it all, the deepening bags beneath his eyes the only sign of wear. Leonie absently rested a hand on the scar along her forearm, her fingertips caressing the raised skin. Did she have bags beneath her own eyes? She had not checked her mirror yet today, and she did not look forward to the experience. Last night had been as rough as the one before, and the one before that. If Thibault was out of place in this back-country home, then Lady Amandine was an alien in a strange land indeed. She sat erect in the chair across from the large desk, likely where the commoners sat when attempting to plead with the town's magistrate. The Duchess had a way of sitting on the chair's edge, as if attempting to touch as little of the wood and cushion as possible, in case she might catch some infection. And yet, even sitting so far forward, she managed to be perfectly still. She was a statue of courtly perfection. No hair of hers was out of place. Her makeup was applied in such a way as to complement her lines of age, and even the wrinkles of her dress presented themselves as intentionally designed ruffles. Lady Amandine was twice Leonie's age, had refused sleep the night before, and was still far more in control and composed than Leonie. So, Leonie said, struggling not to rub her temples and disrupt what little semblance of propriety her hair still had, what is it you are trying so desperately to say, Captain? Perhaps now would be the time to speak plainly. Thibault shifted on his feet. Princess, if it is as I told you before we left Turris Regis, our current location lacks the defensibility to withstand a direct confrontation with the Yelmes forces. When the enemy reaches us, we shall die, no? Leonie searched the captain's eyes, praying she would find in him some level of contradiction. Thibault said nothing, only shifted his eyes downward. Lady Amandine coughed politely, pulling Leonie's gaze toward her. Duchess? Amandine smiled, though only enough to let the smallest of lines show at the edge of her mouth. Your Highness, perhaps it would be best if we began to take steps to inform the residents of the coming danger. The people of this township should be made aware and given the chance to flee. They are citizens of your father's kingdom, after all. Leonie stepped over to the desk, pulling free the large chair sitting beside it. I have maids for this, she thought. sourly as the chair's wooden feet scraped against the floorboards. Maids who were too preoccupied with thoroughly cleaning her newly acquired bedchambers, unloading her luggage, preparing her breakfast, and drawing a bath. And so she sat, scooting the chair up to the cluttered desktop on her own. When she was settled, she said, "It is not so simple, I am afraid. I doubt little more than rumors have made their way this far through the kingdom with the trade caravans on hold. We would cause hysteria if we told them what was to come. Demons from legend besieging the kingdom, and now on their own doorstep, I see no good it would do." "No good? Your Highness, it would give them time to leave." "And where would they go?" Leonie flung an open hand toward the window, gesturing to the vast expanse beyond. "Days before the first snow, homeless, with demons roaming the countryside? I think not, Lady Amandine. I am sorry, but this is not Worcester, and not all the lessons learned there will apply here." Amandine leaned back slowly, mouth closing to a thin line, and her eyes narrowing on the princess. Leonie had, it seemed, gone too far. Again. A small knock on the study's door saved them both. Leonie raised a questioning eyebrow as Thibault opened the door a crack, the hinges giving an annoying squeal, and he peered into the hall. He turned to Leonie a moment later. "Your Highness, with permission, Corporal Tall is reporting." "Bring her," Leonie said, leaning forward with elbows firm on the table and the fingers of each hand intertwining together. Leonie could only remember speaking with Tall once or twice before. In many respects, she looked like any other of the King's Spear, the division of scouts and rangers sworn to the crown. She wore a travel-worn cloak of midnight blue, the hood obscuring her features. Beneath the cloak, her shirt, trousers, and boots were all caked in dirt and worn with much use. A short sword dangled from her hip, an unstrung bow hung alongside a quiver on her back. As Tall stepped into the room, she tossed back her hood and dropped to one knee, head bowed low. "Report," Leonie said. The woman stood, lifting her head and looking directly at the princess. She was almond-skinned with dark eyes shaped in a subtle slant, giving her a look of intense focus. Her neck was thin, and the way she carried herself too graceful, as if she floated through the room while everyone else was weighed down. Leonie wondered if it was her mother or her father that was of the Badawai, the seafaring people to the Far East. Tall had the telltale features, a subtly thinner frame, an aura of grace. It had likely given her a thin edge in the King's Spear. "Your Highness," Tall said, each word precise, "I bear news about the pursuers. Their advance party shall emerge from the South Fern Forest later today, if they have not already." "How many?" Thibault asked, one hand absently scratching his chin. 100 strong, give or take." Leonie sucked in a breath. "If they continue traveling as they are, we believe they will arrive in 2 days' time. 3 if they collect themselves and approach with caution." 2 days, Thibault said, shaking his head. 2 days and the Elmes will be here, looking to put you to the sword, Your Highness. We cannot stay. Amandine looked from Tall to Thibault. "There is much we do not know, Captain. Why did the soldiers of Katsaraka pursue us? How did they come to discover our expedition? We are not even certain they are aware of the princess's presence here. Perhaps they have come looking for the same cursed artifact we have." Thibault shifted. "You are correct, of course. However, we must assume the worst. We cannot allow the princess to stay and fall into enemy hands." Leonie gave a snort, which drew a frown from Amandine. "I do not intend to stay here at all," she thought. But aloud, she said, "Tell me, Captain, what is it you propose? Fight and die out in the open? Flee towards the mountains in the east and seek shelter with the remnant of the Velk?" Leonie jabbed a finger at the top of the desk. "No, this means only that we have 2 days to do what we have come here to do. If we obtain the power that we seek, then no horde, big or small, shall stand in our way. They will simply be the first to fall in our campaign to purge this kingdom from the Viamones and send them back to the gates of Iolasi. My lady, we can still be sent My lady, you can still be sent to safety while a contingent is sent into... Another knock at the door cut him off. Leone thanked the maker for the moment of relief. She did not have the patience today to deal with the captain's protests, well-meaning or not. She waved dismissively at Thibault. Go, Captain. This conversation is over. Do what you can to make the down defensible. We will not flee. Our fate is now intertwined with this sad lot. Leone watched Thibault's lips thin, but he bowed low, then opened the door to reveal two men who contrasted one another in every way. One was old and red-faced, with a thick gut and a furrowed brow, but beside him was a younger man with handsome features and a carefully manicured mustache. Amandine stood as Thibault slid out, nodding to the men at the door. Welcome, Amandine said, voice sweetening. Magistrate Tote, is it not? Leone raised an eyebrow at the Duchess, suspecting she had arranged this meeting, if not the timing. The red-faced magistrate appeared ready to explode as he stepped into the study. If you mean the rightful owner of this home, then yes. Amandine didn't flinch. I understand you feel displaced, magistrate, but do come and sit. Perhaps you shall learn enough to put your agitation at ease, yes? Besides, it is not every day one gets the honor of hosting the daughter of the king, is it? Tote hesitated. Leone could imagine the irritation he felt at being invited into a room of his own home. It would be humiliating. Oh, how Leone had felt that before. Her father and brother not so subtly reminding her of her place. Still, the magistrate stepped into the room. Amandine gestured for them to bow, waiting in her patient way as they fumbled through a laughably shallow imitation of court courtesy. If her father were here, he would have had the two of them whipped. They sat, the fat one causing his chair to squeal. They smelled of sweat and cheap perfumes, and she wanted them gone already. The door stayed open and two guards filed in, flanking each side of the doorway, their faces unreadable. Corporal Tall hadn't left with the captain, but faded into the corner, her hood back on and casting her face into shadow. It was ridiculous, in a way. 3 soldiers to guard 2 men who had most certainly already been checked for anything near a weapon. Beside her, leaning against the drawers of the desk, was her own sword, Balam Idouan. It had been a gift from the Badawai embassy years before, and a constant companion since. Leone could have dispatched both of these with her own sword, but such was not enough of a shield for a princess. Protections upon protections. Amandine remained standing near the door, and all eyes settled on Leone, whose hands were once again folded together before her. She eyed Magistrate Tote, ignoring the younger man entirely. She waited and was a little disappointed when it took but a few short heartbeats before he began to squirm. Eventually, the tensions forced words from his mouth, water gurgling from a kettle. My lady, it's your highness, Amandine interrupted from behind. When he turned to her, causing his chair to squeak and squeal again, she repeated, Commoners shall refer to the Princess of Trevellar as your highness. He looked from Amandine to Leone, sputtering, Commoners? My lady, how dare you? I am the magistrate of this community and the proper resident of this home. How dare you call me a... Silence! Leone snapped, and he complied instantly. At least he knows how to play the dog, Leone thought. We have not the time for this. I have not arrived for the purpose of confiscating your home. There are things at work which you cannot fathom, and like it or not, you and your residents shall be of service to me for as long as I need. This is your rightful duty to the crown, of course. You are loyal to the crown. Are you not? Tote's eyes widened. Of course, your majesty. The Tote family has good, Leone said dryly, both her and Amandine ignoring his use of your majesty, which should have been reserved for her father. It was an attempt, at least, and perhaps soon it would be appropriate. I would hate to have to erect a gallows in such a lovely town. Leone let those words dangle for a brief moment. Now, to business. We have 2 days, perhaps 3, to send an expedition into Romia and return with a weapon. Are you familiar with what I speak? Tote swallowed, and Leonie thought she could see an image of a gallows in his eyes. Or perhaps that was just fear. Familiar? No, your majesty, Leonie scoffed. And you say you are not a commoner. Do you not recognize the old tongue when you hear it? The Romia. It is the ground which lives, yes? Tote looked blank, mouth slightly open, eyes dancing around in search of an answer. Beside him, the young man's eyes narrowed. You mean the wood, your highness? Leonie raised an eyebrow. The name is rather base, I think, but yes, that is what I mean. The wood, Tote said, managing to look somehow more confused. There's nothing there but critters and ghosts, eh? Did you say you're sending in an expedition? Nonsense. People don't survive a day past the tree line. Leonie nodded slowly. I have read that the Romia is dangerous, alive with something like a mind of its own. It is why I have come. It is the center of your wood. At the center of your wood lies what gives it its power, a weapon, and one I mean to wield, and you shall help me. Leonie was unsure why Amandine had summoned the magistrate, but she would not squander the moment. Everything and everyone before her was there for one reason, to get her that weapon. Tote teased out a hasty laugh. Me, your highness, I haven't the slightest wish to die in the wood. Besides, I have responsibilities, and this isn't even... Leonie ground her teeth. I do not expect you to go, magistrate. From you, I need only information. The finest leathers and furs come from this stretch of the kingdom, no? One would imagine your huntsmen are both skilled and familiar with the dangers of the Romia. The younger man leaned forward, cutting the magistrate off before any more words fumbled out of his mouth. You mean the Strayazar? Strayazar, Leonie said the word slowly. It was an old word, out of place and time. Leonie was familiar with most of the languages in Larazarus, but this one she could not seem to place. Amandine caught her eye, and Leonie got the sense the older woman was equally at a loss. The magistrate waved a hand. He is my youngest, your majesty. Forgive him, Leonie glared Tote into silence, then turned back to the younger man. What do you speak of? The man coughed, then glanced at the magistrate. Leonie suspected they were father and son, though the resemblance was not strong. The Strayazars are hunters, your highness. Woodsmen. They're the only ones who can go into the wood and come back, and they go daily. But there aren't many of them left. Most don't live in town. They're strange, your highness. Strange? Not normal. I am aware of the word's meaning. Strange in what way? He flinched, sitting up straighter. Well, they walk about in these cloaks, smelly and dirty all the time. Half the time they won't look at you in the eye, and I swear they twitch whenever you breathe near them. Sometimes you'd swear they weren't there at all, and then they are. People call them wraiths and ghosts. They mumble to themselves when they think no one's looking. And a whole cartload of other things. They're just strange. Leonie pondered his words, her fingers drumming silently on the desk. What is your name? Winson, he said, flashing a toothy smile, which was both wide and yet confined, not working its way up into his ears. Well, you seem useful at least. You shall deliver a message to these hunters. Tell them to come dine with me this evening at supper. It is urgent, Winson, very urgent. Do you understand? He nodded. Leonie looked up, beckoning Tall over with the wave of her hand. Corporal, take a pair of guards and escort young Winson here. Ensure he does not disappoint me. At the wave of Leonie's hand, Winson stood, looking unsure of himself. He bowed awkwardly, following Tall's far more graceful example, and then they withdrew, leaving only Leonie, Amandine, and a nervous-looking magistrate. In the following silence, Amandine stepped forward and took the seat beside Tote, confidence and calm exuding from her, the way warm sunlight drifted in from the window. Tote fidgeted, stammering out, "Well, it seems like you have everything you need, if there wasn't anything else." Leonie lifted a hand and he stopped. Amandine met her gaze and gave a stiff nod. And though she knew what it was Leonie was thinking, Leonie lifted a hand and he stopped. Amandine met her gaze and gave a stiff nod, as though she knew what it was Leonie was thinking. Oh, Deus, may I not regret this. Leonie looked back to Tote, noticing for the first time how tired and bloodshot the man's eyes were. What do you know of the Mainracha? Mainracha? Oh, you mean the Yelmes, eh? The dark souls trapped in Katsaraka? Tote looked towards the bookshelves. Leonie, for her part, was impressed he knew the traditional name for their enemy. Perhaps he had read a few of his books after all. Oh, children's stories, stuff of legends and nightmares. Nonsense, if you ask me. Tales of the Fae, my father would have said. Leonie and Amandine glanced at one another. Perhaps they would have said similar months ago. Now Leonie could not help but see the glimmer of fire in Amandine's eyes, as if Worcester was alight all over again. She is right, Leonie thought, her stomach souring. I should tell him, should give them the chance to flee, to escape. But to do so would be to invite a form of unpredictability and chaos. What would these commoners do? Flee en masse? Grab axes and pitchforks and fight? Turn on her? Please understand, Leonie said, releasing a heavy breath. What I am about to tell you will sound far-fetched. Magistrate Tote left the office with a pale face an hour later. There will be panic now, Leonie said, pacing slowly along the bookshelves, reading spine after spine. The candles had burned themselves out, as if they knew they were no longer needed now, since sunlight flowed through the room. Amandine stood, rolling her shoulders. You have done what is right, Your Highness. Leonie snorted. I'll leave for the Romea in the morning. Will you contain whatever mob the peasants form? If needed, Captain Thibault and I can mitigate any hindrance caused by the commoners. The point is, now they shall at least have a choice, milady. They shall face the darkness on their terms. They will flee. And when they do, they shall be cut down like cattle in the field. Leonie reached out a pale hand and pulled free the ivory spine of Sir Levon's catalogue of Velic burial sites. She gently brushed away the layer of dust and opened the first page. Without looking up, her voice hardly more than a drifting breeze, she said, And their blood shall be on my hands. The Duchess said nothing.